This is the beginning of chapter 5. This is lesson 5:1, ratios. This is a really, really long chapter. There's approximately 10 lessons, but they're going to be short and sweet lessons. So most likely the videos and homework won't take you a lot of time. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is a ratio and what it is. A ratio is comparing two different quantities. It's comparing two different things. And a lot of times when you do mathematics, the basis of all the mathematics is proportional reasoning, being in proportion, solving ratios, and things like that. So this is a pretty important chapter. So a ratio is comparing two different quantities. Ratios can be expressed in three different ways. The first way they can be expressed is like, so if I'm going to compare 3 boys and 4 girls, one way you can express it is you can do it in a fraction format. The second way you can do it is with the 2 dots. Then the third way you can actually express ratios are writing it out. So 3, 2, 4. So you can decide which way you like the best today. I think your homework talks about writing in the fraction format, but I don't really care because all of these are ratios and are ratios expressed in a different way. So you can decide which one you like the best. Okay, so let's talk about writing ratios. So let's say I want you to write a ratio from the shaded to non-shaded. Oops. So what would your ratio be from shaded to non-shaded? Now, when you write a ratio, they have to be in order of exactly what they tell you. So what's my ratio of shaded? Shaded, there's 4 boxes up here, 2. Non-shaded would be 2. Now, when you have a ratio, we ask you to reduce it as much as you can. So for 2, it will really reduce to 2/1 or 2:1. Okay, so that's, make sure you reduce if you can. So another thing you could do would be you could be non-shaded to total boxes. So the non-shaded would be 2, total boxes would be 6, and you would reduce to 1 to 3. So 1 to 3 would be your ratio. There's so many different things you could do in here. You could have your total to your shaded. You could have your non-shaded to shaded. So as long as you do what they want first, it's pretty easy to write the ratio. Just make sure you reduce. Okay, so here's an example. It says Amy made 12 free throw attempts out of 15. So they want you to write the ratio. So there's a whole bunch of ways you could write it. So you could write it 12/15. You could write it 12/15. You could write it 12. Actually, we're 2/15. And then you have to make sure you reduce. So I know that 3 goes into 12 and 15. So reducing would be 4 to 5. So for every 4 free throws she shot, she attempted 5. Okay. So the next one is 35 out of 50 Americans own a smartphone, expressed in a ratio in simplest form. Again, very simple. You could write it any way you wanted to. A lot of times when you have to reduce, it's easier to put it in fraction format, though. I think that's because we're used to it. So if I look at 35 and 5, I know that 5, they can go into both. So it would be 7/10. So that means for every 7 out of 10 Americans own a smartphone. And I just made this up. Most likely it's higher than this, I'm thinking. Okay. Another thing we have to think about is if there's 2 different types of units of measure. Now, when you're writing a ratio with units of measure, it's a little bit different. So I need you to make sure that you have some of these things written down because you're going to need to know these conversions. So like 1 pound is 16 ounces, 1 quart is 2 pints, 1 gallon is 4 quarts, 1 yard is 3 feet, 1 foot is 12 inches, and 1 yard is 36 inches. So you're going to need to know some of these before you do some of the problems. If you know them, fine. If you don't, make sure you get them written down because I'm not going to tell you over and over again. So make sure that you know in your text or in your notebook what some of these conversions are. And these are not in your textbooks, I don't believe. So make sure that you get written what you do not have. Okay. So This is express the ratio of 8 ounces to 3 pounds as a fraction in simplest form. Now, when you have units of measure, so we have ounces and pounds, we have to make the same unit. Okay, so if I look back on that page, I know that 1 pound is 16 ounces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to ounces. Now, how do I do that? If 1 pound is 16 ounces, my next pound is 16 ounces, and my next pound is 16 ounces, what I can do is I can take 16 times 3. Okay, so that gives me, so really what this says now is 8 ounces to 48 ounces. And then you reduce. I know this can be reduced by 8. 1, 2, 6. And this would be your answer. So if you have two different units of measure, you have to make them the same unit. Okay, here's another example. It says express the ratio 21 inches to 2 yards in the simplest form. So I have to make the same unit of measure. In a yards, I'm going to make that into inches. So I know 1 yard is 36 inches. So I know this. I would take 36 times 2. Okay, so now what this says, it says 21 inches to 72 inches. And then you can go ahead and reduce. Let's see, this could be reduced probably by 3 is my guess. Let me find my calculator. Or 21 actually. 72. Okay, so I know if I divide by 3, 21 divided by 3 is 7. 72 divided by 3 is 24. So 20. So reducing, I would get 7 inches to 24 inches, and that would be my final answer. Oops. Okay. All right, the last one, I have expressed the ratio of 4 quarts to 3 gallons in the simplest form. So I'm going to change my gallons to quarts, and I know that there are 4 quarts. Let's go back to make sure. 4 quarts in 1 gallon. Yeah, that's right. So in 1 gallon, I have 4 quarts. So I would take 3 times 4, and that's going to give me 12. So I know there's 12 quarts here. So I have 4 quarts to 12 quarts. And reducing, it'd be 1, 2, 3, and that would be my answer. So making ratios is really simple. It's just making sure you reduce the correct way. And if you have different units of measure, then you have to change them to the same unit. If you have like boys and girls or red and yellow shirts, there's no way you can change the unit of measure. There's no way. So they have to stay what they are. But if you have unit of measure, then you have to make sure you're changing and reducing as far as you can go. So honestly, that's really all I have for you today. If you have any questions, let me know. Make sure you took good notes, but thanks for watching.